Al Diorio here. I'd like to call this evening's meeting to order, 7 o'clock. With several acknowledgements before we get down to the meat of the matter. First order of business is to introduce our new planning board solicitor, Margaret Hogan. Maggie, you out there? Hello, Maggie.
Thanks, Al. I had been muted by the host, so I'm unmuted now. I'm here. I'm delighted to be here. I look forward to working with the board. Just one bit of caution, Mr. Chairman, is that I know it's difficult for everyone to remember this, but when they speak, each and every time they speak, as far as board members are concerned, they need to identify themselves because the members of the public and applicants may not know who's speaking unless they have that identification. And of course, preferably applicants and members of the audience should do the same as well. It'll take a while for us to get used to that. Some folks are on the Zoom with video, and I see several faces, and most folks are not. So they have that option, but if there's a planning board member that's on Zoom, you should have your video on. Thank you.
Very good, Maggie. Thank you very much. I'll be the first to admit that I am remiss in this regard. So call me out on it if I continue to falter. My second acknowledgement this evening is to welcome our new alternate planning board member, John Pennypacker. John, are you there?
*6.
There we go. No, I was, again, muted by the host. Thank you. Hi, I see a lot of familiar faces. I think many of you know me. I'm glad to be back and happy to participate and help out the town.
Very good, John. Thank you so much. So, Al Diorio, I'm going to call for the approval of our minutes as our next item on the agenda. And why don't we break it into two pieces? I'll take the workshop of December 2nd first, followed by the minutes of the regular meeting of the same date.
Ron Prowitz here. I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the December 2nd workshop.
I have a motion.
This is Carolyn. I'll second that.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Diorio, yes.
Prowitz, yes.
Lindelof,
Light,
yes.
yes.
*6.
There we go. Hi, Emily. Yes.
I'm sorry, was that everybody? Okay, very good. Al Diorio, so I'll take the a motion for the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of December 2nd, please.
Ron Prowitz here. I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of December 2nd, 2020.
I have a motion.
This is
Keith
Carolyn.
Lindelof,
I'll second that.
There you go.
Okay.
Thanks, Carolyn.
I have a motion. I have multiple seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Diorio, yes.
Prowitz, yes.
Lindelof, yes.
Light, yes.
Shamshinia, yes.
Very good, thank you. So Al Diorio, I'll call for the first item under old business, a master plan, 4-lot, 7-unit major land development project, Fairview Estates, AP 18, lot 7K 66, Fairview Avenue, Shoreline Properties, Inc. applicant. Is the applicant and/or the representatives present?
I'll just ask Mr. Freeman and Mr. Caffrey to please press *9. So Patrick is live, and if you could just have Mr. Caffrey also please press *9. And then press *6.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you also want to unmute the stenographer or?
Sure. Let me just do that. 1 second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, folks, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Jeff Caffrey. I'm an attorney with Resnick and Caffrey here on behalf of the applicant Shoreline Properties. With us also this evening is Patrick Freeman, the engineer with American Engineering. As I'm sure you're aware, we're here seeking master plan approval for our cluster development on Fairview Estates. We've had the opportunity to review the comments of the land trust, the memorandum of the new solicitor, Attorney Hogan, as well as the comments from Crossman Engineering, and generally are in agreement with the comments and the suggestions that were raised. The only point that I would make, and I'm sure Patrick may have a few comments as well, is with respect to the letter from the Hopkinton Land Trust. We're certainly in agreement with deeding to them a yet to be created lot 5 off of the plat. In the conditions that they raise, one of the things that they mention is that the Hopkinton Land Trust may install a normally locked drive gate. And from our perspective, the only thing we would want to do is we either want to have them install or give us the option of installing a locked drive gate, so that way we eliminate any type of an attractive nuisance by giving free access to the gravel road that will be utilized for access. I don't know if the commission has any comments regarding that requirement of stipulation.
Diorio here. Why don't we tackle that comment after you've made your presentation? I've made a notation here.
Okay. In addition, I mean, we're seeking a waiver this evening to allow for the creation of an additional duplex unit. As you know, your cluster development regulations provide for no more than 50% of duplex units on the subdivision. If we were to submit what was required, that would give us 2 duplex units and 2 single-family units, thereby triggering the inclusionary zoning requirements of your zoning ordinance. And as such, we would, in my opinion anyway, be entitled to an additional unit, thereby necessitating us having to request that 3rd duplex unit. So, and I think from a planning perspective, it enables us to preserve a significant amount of open space that would otherwise not be available should we go with a standard subdivision plan. So that would be the basis for us seeking the waiver of the duplex requirements. I think Patrick would like to perhaps address some of the comments that were raised by Crossman in their suggestions as well.
Sure. My name is Patrick Freeman. I'm with American Engineering. I'm a registered professional engineer. Per the board's recommendations at the last meeting, we made some revisions to our plans. I'm going to go over those and then I can address Crossman's comments. We provided additional buffering on parcel 1 in between the proposed detention pond alongside Fairview Avenue and the proposed building on parcel 1. We also provided.
I'm actually not able to hear you. It sounds like someone else's audio is going over you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just go over. All right. So the revisions to the plan that we made per the board's recommendations, we provided additional buffering on the westerly side of parcel 1 in between the proposed infiltration pond and the proposed building on parcel 1. We've also provided a 12-inch pipe with a 12-inch dome cover that would connect the level spreader to catch basin 7 per Crossman Engineering's recommendation. We've also added a note to sheet 4 describing the limitations within the no-cut buffer. One of Crossman's recommendations that they submitted to you today also included connecting the buildings on parcels 1 and 7 to an underground infiltration practice to alleviate any runoff to Fairview Avenue, and we're open to adding those practices. And that's all. Thank you.
I think also at the last meeting, I think the board had raised some concerns about the screening and the buffering of the site from Fairview Avenue, and perhaps Patrick, you could address what we've proposed for that as well.
I'm sure. I did mention those on sheet 4 as well as 5. We proposed an additional row of plantings. Would I be able to screen share a PDF?
I don't believe that we have that capability. So with this form of Zoom, this is Talia, the planning clerk, that makes it difficult. We're going to be using a new form of Zoom with a webinar at our next meeting. So at that point, you would be able to present a presentation. We just don't have that capability right now.
Sure. I should be able to describe it. If you have sheet 6 of the plan set, it's more clearly shown on that sheet. You'll see parcel 1 is in the center of that view. There's a proposed 26 by 46 single family dwelling. To the west of that, past the outs, there's an additional row of trees that we provided to provide buffering from Fairview Avenue.
At this point, Mr. Chairman, we really have no further comments to make. We'd like to open it up to the board to see if they have any questions or concerns.
Uriel here, yes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Why don't we start with planning board comments or concerns first, and then we'll go around collect everybody else's thoughts. Planning board members.
Just to interject,
Go ahead.
we do have Doug Allen in the audience, so if you have any questions, you can ask him from Crossman Engineering.
Very good.
Just
Thank
wanted
you.
to let that be known.
I have just one question. This is Ron Prowitz here.
Go ahead, Ron.
Where do we stand with the waiver for the 3 duplexes as opposed to duplexes and another single unit? What are the hurdles that have to be addressed to accomplish that, if any?
Are you directing that, this is Jeff Caffrey, are you directing that to me, or are you directing it to the other members of the board?
Pretty much anybody that has an answer that is going to work. I don't know if our solicitor has to weigh in or if the planner can do it.
Why don't I straighten that out? Diorio here. Mr. Caffrey, why don't you start, and then we'll ask Ms. Hogan to step in.
Sure. As I read your subdivision regulations, the planning board has a fair degree of latitude to waive or modify any of the requirements of the subdivision or land development project approval. I mean, it does require that certain conditions be met. First and foremost, that the modification is reasonable and consistent with the purposes and intent of the regulations. I think clearly, your regulations place a premium on preserving open space and maintaining the rural nature of the site. So I think in this particular instance, by allowing us to do a cluster development and to allow us to take advantage of the inclusionary zoning bonus, I think it satisfies your requirements and it makes the project attractive to the developer as a cluster. And it also, per your regulations, it doesn't reduce the standard to lessen the requirements of the Hopkinton zoning ordinances So once again, I think you've got the authority to grant the waiver, provided that we meet those requirements. And certainly, I'm sure Attorney Hogan can weigh in on that as well.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
This is Carolyn. I have a question regarding the affordable housing. With some of the research that I've been doing over the recent months regarding affordable housing, my question to the developer or the attorney is what agency is working with you on this affordable unit? We had discussion about whether it was going to be for sale or for rent. Either way, there has to be an agency that is going to support the construction, monitoring, et cetera, of that affordable unit. And without that confirmation, I don't think we can call it an affordable unit.
Joe Catelli, do you want to address that? Have you spoken to a monitoring agent yet?
Yeah, so Jeff, I deal with in the board, this is Joe Catelli, I'm the developer. I work with Narragansett Housing. They're very familiar with me. We've done a lot of these projects. We're in the middle of doing right now. So they would be involved either if I was going to rent or sell. And I've already spoke to them about this briefly. They haven't looked at the plan yet, but they know I have another one coming.
Does that
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So it's Narragansett Housing.
Well, almost. Okay.
To answer your question, it was Narragansett Housing.
So I'm open to learn. What kind of documentation would they be providing the planning board to support your application for that additional unit?
I don't think they actually supply you guys with any information. What they do is once I get this prepared and before I record the plan, I got to designate the unit. At that point, they'll prepare an agreement that gets recorded. So that's right before we record the final plan. And I really haven't given that much thought yet. I'm not sure what unit I'm gonna put it in.
And as you probably realize, there'll also be deed restrictions that are recorded in connection with the conveyance of that property or the creation of that property that would run with the land as well.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm hoping to hear, and I'd ultimately like to see it. Support what we're trying to accomplish over here by, if possible, sharing those documents with us so that we can just be thoroughly informed with what's going on over there.
Sure, I don't see a problem with getting you a proposed draft of what their restrictions and requirements would be.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
Diorio here. Any other planning board members care to comment, questions, thoughts?
Keith here, none at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Diorio again. I only have two comments, and one may be simply my inability to find it on your mapping. I certainly appreciate your specifying the second row of plantings, let's see, westerly of the OWTS on parcel 1. I don't, however, see any specifications as to, well, stipulating that they must be planted. I see proposed plantings. I don't see any details. I don't know what they are. It seems pretty loose to me. Am I missing something?
No, we're proposing them to be either a white pine or something of that nature, if you have a preference.
No, I would only ask that perhaps at the preliminary, you be a little bit more diligent about specifying when they're going to be planted, what they are, so that if some contractor is assigned to go out there, they know exactly what to do.
Absolutely.
Great. Second question or comment is, I see your text box with the no cut buffer language. I'm gonna look over at Jim here. Do we have some standard verbiage that would go with a no-cut zone? Because that note right there seems way too liberal.
Yes, excuse me, we have a no-cut notation.
I'm sorry, who is this speaking?
Yeah, this is Jim Lampier, Town Planner, sorry.
Thank you.
We do have a no-cut buffer notation that we've used in the past. I will be happy to pass that along to Patrick Freeman for incorporation on the preliminary plan.
Very good. Diorio here, that's great. As long as it gets back on the plan, that would make me very happy. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emily, did you have any comments?
Yeah, sorry. The first one was that when I muted myself just to, limit background noise, but then I was unable to unmute myself. So I just wanted to let you know that, Talia. But I also have comments, if that's okay. I was curious about the stormwater management issues that were raised by Crossman in their comments. They presented two options for limiting stormwater flow and managing the stormwater onto Fairview Avenue. And I was wondering if the applicant had a comment on that.
Sure. Which two items were you referring to, just so I'm clear?
Sure. So on the very last page of Crossman's report, their assessment, there's two bullets, and it describes that there's, no increase in flow indicated by the calculations, but the town has documented that the stormwater drains on this street are just dry wells with no outlet. So there is a risk that increased stormwater could cause a problem in these areas, especially since this street tends to pond up and ice in the winter. And so the two options that Crossman describes here are developing a private association to maintain the stormwater systems on the property and provide semi-annual reports to the town, document the maintenance activities, and then be ready to address any potential failures by expanding those dry well systems. And the other option is to instead direct any of the rooftop and driveway runoff that is expected to drain onto Fairview to redirect those to on-site dry wells on the property instead. So just curious which one of those options you guys are considering.
Sure.
Patrick, let me just interject for 1 second. Yep. We're going to have to create a homeowners association at some point in time, I'm sure prior to the preliminary plan approval. And it would be our intention at that point in time to implement some type of maintenance program and incorporate that into the HOA documents so that the association would assume responsibility for future compliance. And go ahead, Patrick, you can take it from there if you like.
Thank you, Jeff. That is correct. So at the next step of this project, we have to submit to wetlands, DEM wetlands, and part of their submission package is an operation and maintenance agreement that will cover the maintenance of those ponds. So that aspect would be taken care of under that. It would be assigned to the homeowners association to take care of those ponds, and we'd specify how that maintenance should take place. The additional item of connecting the roof leaders of the two buildings to an underground infiltration practice, we're okay with that. We did design this system not to overflow for the 25-year storm event, which is it's a significant amount of rainfall. So by adding those infiltration practices, it's only going to provide a small amount of relief for very large storms. So we will add those, and I'm okay with adding them, but we designed that system, the water quality pond adjacent to Fairview Avenue, not to overflow until after the 25-year storm. So we were considerate of Fairview Avenue receiving a lot of runoff.
Great, thank you.
Uriel here. Any other planning board members care to weigh in? Okay, I see no hands. So as I go around the horn here, looking for comments from other folks, why don't I start with Maggie Hogan, any concerns from the legal perspective?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to confirm, what is the date of the plans that are under consideration? I understood the engineer to suggest that a change had been made to plans, but I don't think I have an updated copy. So what is the most recent iteration of the plans that we're reviewing?
Yes, Jim Lampier, Town Planner. One of the, two of the pages of the plan set have been modified as of 12/22/2020.
And have all the board members received that?
Yes,
Okay, I'll need a set at some point.
fine. Yep.
The other item, Mr. Chairman, if I could, please, would be to circle back to Mr. Caffrey's sort of opening remarks, if you will, and on the count. As the board is aware, I've provided you with a memo in regards to this. And I just wanted to be clear that there's not only a request for a waiver that covers one of the duplexes, and then the third duplex, the first one's allowed by right under the count, the second one requires a waiver, and the third one is also allowed by right, because at that point you're at 6 units. They're required to include the inclusionary, and that's the only way you get to it. So I just wanted to be clear that it isn't a density bonus. It is an inclusionary unit, and you are granting a waiver for one unit, one duplex, if you grant it.
Very good, thank you. So next I would, Margaret, if there's nothing else, I'm going to ask Jim Lampier if there's any planning concerns.
Jim Lampier, Town Planner. I would ask the applicant, do you know at this point in time which one of those 7 units will be the affordable unit? I think I asked that question last time and you weren't sure.
I'm not sure at this point.
Okay, so if you're gonna put an affordable unit in a duplex, I guess that would have to be a rented unit.
Yes, no, it'd be a duplex for sure.
It will be a duplex, okay. And so would you condoize that duplex or?
No, they're not going to be condoized at this point. No, I may even, I got the existing duplex, which I did do, I'm going to do some remodeling to that. There could be a possibility I could even put it in that one.
So if you're not going to condoize it, you'd pretty much that would have to be a rental unit, wouldn't it, if it was in a duplex?
Well, if I sold it to a duplex, the deed restriction would go over the buyer. They'd buy the duplex, with the
deed restriction.
Deed restriction. But at this point, I don't plan on selling them.
Doug Allen would like to weigh in.
I'm sorry?
Doug from Crossman.
Yes. Do you already hear Doug? Are you out there? Comments?
Doug, press *6, please.
Hi, this is Doug Allen from Crossman Engineering. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to make one comment that Jim did say 2 of the plans were changed with a date of 12/22/20, but 3 other sheets have been revised also. Sheet number 4, sheet number 5, and sheet number 10 have a revision 1 date of 12/8/20.
Yes, Jim Lampier, Town Planner. Doug, I did confer with the applicant. One of those, I believe it was sheet number 4, was most recently amended of 12/22. It's not reflected in what the planning board had. One of those sheets in the set is 12/22. They've made the correction on their plans, and it will be reflected with the preliminary submission. So there's 2 sheets.
Okay.
2 sheets of this plan set that were actually amended on the 22nd, but only one of those 2 is reflective of that. Okay, the other one has a date of 12/8. So I did catch that and I mentioned it to him.
Okay, I just want to make sure the your solicitor knew. I just do it. There's 3 dates on the plans I plotted out. So, thank you.
Correct.
Okay, moving on. Diorio here. Our Conservation Commission liaison, I don't know if Deb is in the audience.
She is.
Deb, any thoughts from your end?
Press *6, please, Deb.
Okay. Hi, I'm Deborah Leary from Conservation Commission. I was concerned about the stormwater. It seems that everybody's on the same page with that. So we're okay. As far as the open space goes, there's no one here from the land trust to talk about the gate. I think that can be talked about later. But I'm really excited that they're keeping this property open in the back. It's going to be open space. That's what we're all about. So. I don't really have any other comments. I think Emily touched on a couple of things for me already. So, okay.
Okay, Diorio here. Very good, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So with that, I'd entertain any comments from the audience if they're out there.
If you're a member of the public who would like to make a comment, please press *9. And then I'm going to read off the last 4 digits of your phone number, and then I'm going to ask you to state your name for the record, please. And press *6 to unmute yourself. 4432. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Cynthia Johnson from Hope Valley. I am on the land trust, and I was pleased to hear the acceptance of the things in the letter tonight, and I think we can work with the gate. Talking to Mr. Catelli or someone, and to be able to work out an arrangement with the gate, no problem. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No other hands.
Diorio here. It appears that there are no other hands in the audience. So unless there are any other questions or concerns, I'd be prepared to entertain a motion from a planning board member.
So this is Emily. I will make a motion to approve Shoreline Properties Inc.'s application for master plan for a major cluster subdivision located at 66 Fairview Avenue, AP 18 Lot 7K, for a total of 4 lots with 7 residential dwelling units based on the following findings of fact and conclusions of law. Findings of fact first, Shoreline Properties Inc. is the applicant and owner of the subject property by deed recorded in book 575, page 462, as noted on sheet 4 of 11 of the plans dated December 8th, 2020. The subject property contains a gross total of 13.23 acres, with 2.23 acres categorized as lands unsuitable for development. 3, the proposed cluster development would require 3.3 acres of open space, but proposed 6.99 acres as shown in the notes on sheet 4 of 11 of the plans. 4, an additional no-cut buffer of 0.94 acres is also provided, bringing the total open space and no-cut buffer to 7.28 acres, which is a total of 60% of the subject parcel, also as shown on sheet 4 of 11 of the plans. 5, the conventional yield plan and density calculations indicate that the subject property could be developed into 6 conventional lots. Section 9.3 of the cluster subdivision regulations provides that cluster subdivisions are preferred over conventional subdivisions. Number 6, Hopkinton has an inclusionary zoning ordinance. It provides that subdivisions with 6 or greater residential units must provide either an exclusionary residential dwelling unit or pay a fee in lieu of building the unit or construct or rehabilitate a residential dwelling unit on another parcel. 7, the proposed plan is a cluster subdivision of 4 residential lots and 1 open space lot. The plan proposes 1 single family dwelling lot and 3 duplex lots for a total density of 7 lots, including the 1 required inclusionary dwelling unit. Number 8, Section 9.22D of the subdivision regulations limits duplexes in a subdivision to 50% of the units. Section 11.2.1 permits the planning board to waive this limitation. Number 9, however, the inclusionary zoning ordinance provides that the number of dwelling units permitted on a parcel shall be increased above the number that otherwise would be permitted in order to accommodate the inclusionary dwelling units. 10, all inclusionary dwelling units are subject to the terms and conditions set forth in the Hopkinton inclusionary zoning ordinance as adopted September 20th, 2010, incorporated herein by reference. 11, Section 9.2.2F of the subdivision regulations require a 100-foot perimeter buffer around the entire perimeter of the lot and a 50-foot open space buffer for lots that abut a public street. The planning board may modify the buffer if other acceptable arrangements can be made, which reduce the overall impact of the project. The full measure of these buffers are not provided on the plans in the applicant proposed reduced buffers, with a portion of them being a no-cut buffer. The applicant was directed to provide language describing the no-cut buffer. 12, the subject property contains a unique cultural and natural resource known as Witch Rock. 13, on December 22nd, 2020, the Hopkinton Land Trust filed a letter requesting conveyance of a portion of the subject property to it and that various other conditions be placed upon any plan approval. That correspondence is incorporated herein by reference and made a part hereof. 14, the town's consulting engineers, Crossman Engineering, reviewed the plans and expressed concerns with 1, the size of the proposed buffers in light of the requirements of section 9.2.2F.7, and 2, the proposed overflow from the sand filter system at Fairview Avenue. By letter dated November 12th, 2020, and last revised December 29th, 2020, Crossman proffered recommendations it might mitigate the overflow issue, incorporated herein by reference and made a part hereof. So conclusions of law: 1, the proposed development is consistent with the comprehensive plan and or has satisfactorily addressed the issues where there may be inconsistencies. 2, the proposed development complies with the Hopkinton zoning ordinance, including the inclusionary zoning ordinance, which requires 1 inclusionary residential dwelling unit. 3, there will be no significant negative environmental impacts from the proposed development as shown on the final plan with all required conditions for approval. 4, the subdivision as proposed will not result in the creation of individual lots with such physical constraints to development that building on those lots according to pertinent regulations and building standards would be impractical because lands unsuitable for development are excluded from development. 5, all proposed land developments and all subdivision lots shall have adequate and permanent physical access to a public street. 6, the proposed development provides for a safe circulation of pedestrian and vehicular traffic.
Sorry, provides for a, wait, Emily, provides for a
safe circulation of pedestrian and vehicular traffic, for surface water runoff control, for suitable building sites, and for preservation of natural, historical, and cultural features that contributes to the attractiveness of the community with required conditions of approval. 7, the design and location of streets, building lots, utilities, drainage improvements, and other improvements in the proposed development minimizes flooding and soil erosion with the required conditions of approval. The order is: 1, the waiver from section 9.2.2 is granted because, first, the regulation is reasonable and consistent with the general purposes and intent of these regulations, which prioritizes cluster subdivisions over conventional subdivisions. 2, or B, the cluster subdivision preserves a substantial tract of open space with a known cultural feature, so the waiver is in the best interest of good planning practice. And C, the waiver does not reduce the standard to less than the requirements in the zoning ordinance. So number 2, under this order, the proposed master plan for Fairview Estates is approved together with the following conditions of approval. First, an additional row of plantings with a description of the type of vegetation to be planted is provided on parcel 1 between the dwelling and the water quality pond adjacent to Fairview Avenue, as shown on the plans. 2, the applicant will address Crossman Engineering's recommendations for stormwater management by requiring a homeowners association to, among other things, perform maintenance of stormwater systems, monitor them for failure, and expand the dry well systems if necessary, as well as to decrease runoff in general by directing rooftops and driveways that drain toward Fairview Avenue into on-site dry wells. Third, the acquisition by the Hopkinton Land Trust of the open space for the access to and preservation of Witch Rock is consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. And fourth and lastly, the detailed language for a no-cut buffer to be provided by the town planner will be added to the master plan.
Iorio here. We have a motion, and I must say that was well done.
Ron Prowitz here. I'll second that motion.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Diorio, yes.
Prowitz, yes.
Lindelof, yes.
Light, yes.
Shamshinia, yes.
Diorio here. And there you have it, master plan approval. Go forth. Diorio here, moving forward to the next item on the agenda. A reinstatement / extension of the approved master plan, 2-lot major subdivision, Calzar, AP9, lot 2256, Woodville Alton Road, Calzar LLC applicant. The applicant or the representative present.
He is. Please press *6, Mr. Duhamel. This is Talia, the planning board.
I'm also have Attorney Kelly Fracassa working for Mr. Hennessy with me tonight.
Is it just the two of you, Mr. Duhamel?
Yes, Mr. Hennessy can't make the meeting.
All right, thank you.
Just to start out here, this was before the planning board quite a while ago. Just looking over it to familiarize myself with it, there are two issues with this right off the bat. It's a 2-lot cluster subdivision. We meet pretty much all of the requirements. There is one issue that we have is that the total site area is a shade under the required 10 acres. However, the planning board does have the authority to vary that under the circumstances. And I believe there's also an area where we have the 100-foot required buffer would not be practical, and the planning board has the authority to vary that as well. Those are issues which Chris is going to be able to speak to tonight. You have the plan in front of you. I believe one of the problems here is that a good portion of this lot is wet. So a good portion of this lot is not usable, and it constricts the portion of the property which is. So Chris, what are your thoughts on the 10-acre requirement and also the 100-foot buffer?
Yes, thank you. My name is Chris Duhamel, a professional engineer and land surveyor with Crete Engineering. I represented the project when it received master plan approval in September of 2018. At the time, we had evaluated different development potential for the property, extending a public road on the site, showing 3 lots that could meet the RFR 80 zoning, showing a 2-lot subdivision, showing a variance, which was variance for frontage in the RFR 80 that was not approved in a previous application. So we looked at it fresh at the time, and 2 years ago, and we looked at a cluster subdivision and how we could best preserve open space on the property, buffers to the abutting properties, and provide just for one additional residential lot for Mr. Hennessy. We asked for a waiver to the 10-acre requirement. The lot being 9.7 acres in size, that waiver was granted. We asked for consideration of the buffers to the abutting properties. That consideration was given. There's a concern with the text of the minutes that said the buffer to the west to the Woodville Alton Road, the existing roadway, would have to be 100 feet. I'm not certain that was discussed or considered, mainly because the existing septic system of the existing house is only 70 feet off of that right of way. And then we were proposing another septic system for the new house, 90 feet off that right of way. So we proposed, I think we talked about a 50-foot buffer along the west, along the Woodville Alton Road. So that's the only thing that I would present to the board at the preliminary plan hearing, consideration of that buffer. But all other aspects of the master plan are met. The area of the site, 9.78 acres, the area of wetlands and buffers, which buffers now can count as per state law, but notwithstanding that, there's 4.6 acres of wetlands and buffers yielding 5.1 acres of upland area. So we've subdivided the land to the cluster subdivision requirements, which is 30,000 square foot lot with 120 foot of frontage. We have 2 lots. One, the existing house and septic system would sit on a 2-acre lot. A proposed house and septic system would sit on a 1.5 acre lot. And then we'd have 6 acres of preserved open space around the property into the Wood River as well. So the houses would be served by private wells and on-site wastewater treatment systems. The new house would be developed to the stormwater regulations for a single-family home, where the roof leaders are routed to a dry well, and the driveway has a stone trench for infiltration. The soils on site are optimum. They're well draining, hinckley, gravelly, sandy loam, 7 foot or greater water tables. They're category 1 soils, if you're familiar with DM requirements, that require even a larger they're so well drained, it requires a greater separation to the single family wells. Instead of 100 feet, it's 150 feet. So we've accommodated 150 foot minimum to the on-site wells and 150 foot minimum to any off-site wells for the septic design. So we're here tonight to reinstate the 2018 master plan, and then if approved, we would continue with the preliminary plan, a submission and a full board review of that preliminary plan.
Yorio here. Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chris. So we'll start with planning board members, and I don't mind leading off on this. I was one of the planning board members, and I'd like to, when this was initially approved, and I'd like to return to the issue of the 100-foot buffer on the west side of the property, that is the road side. So Chris, it was in fact a discussion of a 100-foot buffer, not 50. And I'd like to make some recommendations with regards to your proposed limit of disturbance, because I think that the 100-foot buffer is, we may not get to 100.0, but I think we're going to get a lot closer than what you're proposing. So, if I may, can you tell me the distance from Testable 19-1 to the westerly edge of the proposed OWTS? An estimation is acceptable.
It's dimensioned on sheet 6. It's dimensioned, the corner of the septic field is 92.4 to the property line. So another 10 feet or so to 19.1.
So the distance from 19-1 to the westerly edge of the OWTS, what's the distance?
I'm estimating 10 feet.
There we go, very good. So if you were to pick that OWTS up and move it 15 feet to the east, keeping 19-1 25 feet from your system, and you revise your limit of disturbance to run along 10 feet west of the westerly edge of the proposed OWTS that's now been relocated, you're going to be much closer to having a 100-foot buffer. Would you agree?
Yeah, that would work.
Yes. So why don't we do that?
Well, I could say the consideration given was, you know, the existing home has a circular drive, gravel circular drive with 2 curb openings, and we were eliminating a lot of that disturbance and replanting it with a buffer. So, you know, there was consideration given to having a buffer to the public right of way.
So I applaud that.
Move that 15 foot.
Yep. So why don't we do that? So why don't you make your limit of disturbance for the proposed lot much closer to being 100 feet?
Okay.
In addition, why don't we reduce the limit of disturbance as you move toward the easterly portion of the site? So instead of being as large as you have it, can we bring the limit of disturbance down to simply get to the well and back? So essentially, you're going to bring the northerly limit of disturbance, essentially going to create a corridor to the well. Am I explaining myself accurately?
I'm trying to picture, there wouldn't be any backyard, Al, for the house. Is that what we have a walkout design now for the house.
You're certainly entitled to have some kind of backyard, of course, but if you've heard previous conversations this evening, our objective is to maintain the existing vegetation to the greatest extent possible. So if we allow everybody to cut their backyard, we're defeating one of our primary objectives. So I'm asking you to reduce your limit of disturbance in the backyard to something a little bit more reasonable.
I can certainly move the limited disturbance in to reach the well, but to have a corridor, I don't know that that's what Hopkinton wants. We have 6 acres of open space to the east.
I applaud that. That's not my concern.
Okay. Well, that's a good part of this. So
how about reduce?
I'll move
There we go.
the disturbance line in.
Very good. Excellent. Those are the only comments that I had. Other planning board.
Okay.
Keith there. Thanks, Al. You said it well. I'm all set. No questions.
Carolyn here. I don't have any comments.
This is Emily. I agree with the points Al made. I'm curious how the wording about the western buffer can be incorporated, since it's going to be as close as practicable to 100 feet. But I think we're recognizing in this discussion that 100 feet exactly might not be attainable. Is this something that maybe we should look for updated plans? Al, is that what you're thinking before we put anything in writing here?
So Diorio here.
Al, we actually have another meeting to go to, the preliminary plan meeting. So it would be a submission of your thoughts, and then Jim Lanfair and your in the planning board review.
Diorio here again. Chris, I am comfortable with what might seem to be waffly language about the 100 feet. I am confident that you understand my objective and you will endeavor to get as close to that number as you can possibly get. Because if you don't, of course, I will bring it to your attention again. So I have the greatest confidence in you. And Emily, to address your concern, I would be perfectly comfortable with language that reiterates that fact, that the applicant will strive to attain a number as close to 100 feet as possible.
Ron, this is Talia. If you'd like to make any comments, press *6. I muted you because there was a little bit of background noise coming from your phone. But if, like I said, press *6 if you have any comments.
Sorry about the noise. I was just following my plans along with the conversation that was carrying on.
No worries. Nope. But do you have any comments?
Just that I agree with the consensus of everybody so far. Al worded it very nicely, and I agree with everything that has been said.
All right.
This is Carolyn. One question. Leading off of what Emily had mentioned about fuzzy language, would it be practical to at least put a minimum on that buffer?
If I could, I would like to work on the preliminary plan and show how we can get to 100 feet on the west, and then allow planning board review. Right now at master plan, I don't have a strong idea, and it's hard to work with to discuss with the board back and forth.
Yep, Diorio here. Carolyn, I don't want to beat the thing to death here. I think that the applicant understands what we're trying to accomplish. I don't think I have to shackle him here with maximums and minimums and all that. I'm very confident that they're going to do exactly what we've asked them to. I appreciate that that's not the way we might normally handle it, but
okay.
You know, we're really close to abiding by the conditions of the original approval to begin with, and I'm really just looking for refinement here. So, again, I have confidence in the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, this is Solicitor here, Maggie Hogan. I have a suggestion to offer to the applicants. They have a request to reinstate their master plan approval, which is accompanied by their request to reduce the size of the buffer. Based upon the conversation, the applicant could simply withdraw its request to reduce the size of the buffer at the present time and then address the planning board's concerns at preliminary stage of review.
Margaret, that's Diorio here. Margaret, that's an excellent idea. How does the applicant feel about that suggestion?
I would agree with that. that would give us latitude to work with the board.
John would like to make a comment. Go ahead.
Hi, this is John Pennypacker. My question is, the way this is divided, what will happen with the open space in the background? And is there a possibility that it could be subdivided in the future? Could they put a road in between the two units to access the lot in the back? I just trying to get a sense of, what happens next with the open space.
Kelly, that's yours.
I think you can unmute him.
Yes, 1 second.
We would put a deed restriction on the open space so that with the oversight of the town on that, so that open space would be preserved in its existing wooded state and not be available for sheds or recreation areas or cutting.
Yeah, that would be absolutely no problem.
Kelly, identify yourself for the record, please.
Oh, Kelly Fracassa, sorry about that. Yeah, that's no problem whatsoever.
Terrific, thank you.
Diorio here. Planning board members, any other thoughts, comments?
Prolix, none.
Carolyn, none.
Linda Lowe, none.
This is Emily. I'm good too.
Okay, Diorio here, outstanding. Let's go around the room, if you will. Margaret, any other legal ramifications?
None at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Jim, anything from your end?
I just want to pretty much reiterate what was just said here. What the applicant is asking for is to reinstate this application. So that would be reinstated with the 2 waivers that were granted at the time of approval. We got the second one being with the buffers, and then also an extension request. So you should really put a time limit on that extension request. I think we can agree that the plan that you have in your packet does not reflect one of the 2 conditions that were put on it at master plan approval. Now, but the master plan with that condition is what is going to be reinstated. So when they come back for preliminary, we expect to see the preliminary plan to reflect the interpretation that was made by the chairman just now to increase that buffer to the extent that they can. So that will be done at preliminary. So basically all we're doing is reinstating the master plan that was approved, extending it, but we have to acknowledge, which I think we did in our course of our discussion, acknowledge that what is on that rendering does not reflect the condition of master plan approval, but it will be modified for preliminary. So that I just want to make that clear if I can.
Yep, Diorio here, well done. So talk to me about this extension. So duration?
It's really up to the planning board. What kind of an extension does the applicant feel as though they need?
It's a 1-year extension. We intend to submit next next month for preliminary, but 1 year is it 2 1-year extensions that are available? So I
would hope that if you get a 1-year extension on this, that we could dispense with this subdivision within 12 months and get it approved. Do you agree with that? You shouldn't really need any more than 12 months on this.
That's correct. It would be dated from September, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay. Jim Lampier, I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So Diorio here, going to the public. Anyone in the audience wishing to be heard on this evening?
If you're a member of the public who would like to make a comment, please press *9. No hands.
Diorio here, no hands being shown. That said, I'm prepared to entertain a motion.
This is Emily. I will make a motion to approve CalSAR LLC's request for the reinstatement of a master plan for a 2-lot residential subdivision for property located at 56 Woodville Alton Road, also known as Plat 9, Lot 22, with the following findings of fact and conclusion of law. Findings of fact, number 1, CalSAR LLC is the applicant and owner of the subject property by deed recorded in book 532, page 132, as represented by note 2 on sheet 3 of 6 of the plans dated December 23rd, 2020. By a unanimous vote of 4-0, the applicant was granted master plan approval on September 4th, 2018 for a 2 residential subdivision lot on an open space lot. Number 3, the approval expired on September 4th, 2020. Number 4, the development or subdivision remains consistent with the comprehensive plan, which has not changed since this approval in 2018. Number 5, the zoning of the subject parcel, RFR 80, is the same as it was at the time of the original approval. Number 6, the subdivision regulations are substantially the same as they were at the time of the original approval. Number 7, the physical conditions of the subject parcel are substantially the same as they were at the time of the original approval, as testified to on January 6th, 2021 by Chris Duhamel of Dupree Engineering. Any applicable state or federal regulations are substantially the same as they were at the time of the original approval, and all applicable state and federal approvals have not expired. The applicant master plan approvals are valid for an additional 2-year term and may be extended for up to 2 additional terms upon written request. The applicant filed its written request to reinstate master plan approval on December 23rd, 2020. And lastly, the applicant has also requested a 1-year extension of this approval. So the conclusions of law are as follows. 1, the conclusions of law from the approval dated September 4th, 2018 are incorporated herein by reference. Number 2, Rhode Island General Law 45-23-40G1 and the Hopkinton Subdivision Regulations, Section 11.3, permit reinstatement of expired master plans for major subdivisions subject to specific criteria. And number 3, the applicant has met the regulatory burden of proof set forth in Section 11.3 of the Hopkinton Subdivision Regulations, as demonstrated by the findings of fact set forth above. So the order is as follows. Number 1, the master plan approval for a 2-lot residential subdivision for property located at 56 Woodville Alton Road, also known as Plat 9, Lot 22, is hereby reinstated with all required conditions of approval as of September 4th, 2020, with an expiration of September 4th, 2021. Number 2, in the event that the applicant desires a second 1-year extension of this approval, the applicant shall file its request in advance of the expiration date, preferably with sufficient time for the board to hear and decide the matter in advance of the expiration of the extended approval. And 3, the applicant's preliminary plan will reflect a west side buffer of as close to 100 feet as practicable and a reduction in the limit of disturbance on proposed lot 2. There you have it.
I have a motion, Diorio here. I have a motion, another well-structured motion.
This is Carolyn. I'll second it.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Diorio, yes.
Prelwitz, yes.
Lindelof, yes.
Light, yes.
Shamshinia, yes.
There you have it. Reinstatement. Go for it.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Diorio here. Next item on the agenda. Pre-application meeting, comprehensive permit, Brushy Brook. Plat 3-2, lots 1 through 7-1, Die Hill Road. LR 6-A LLC applicant. Applicant discussion with the planning board relative to the master plan decision of November 23, 2010, and their upcoming preliminary plan submission. So I'll take just some liberty here that we have this identified as a pre-application meeting. Not really a pre-application. Yes, Jim? What do you think? You can stay there.
I would call it, I don't know what else to call it. It's, they're coming back to clarify the master plan. I would term this a pre-application meeting, pre-application to the preliminary plan.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I just don't want there to be any confusion in the audience that somehow we're entertaining a pre-application right from the get-go type.
Correct, it is not that.
Very good, thank you. So with that clarification, is the applicant and/or their representative in the audience?
Bill, please press star 9. And then press star 6, please. Bill is in the audience. I've directed him to press star 9 and then star 6. I believe Mr. Preve is available as well.
Yes, Eric Prevey is here as well.
There isn't any reason as to why Mr. Landry should not be able to both press star 9 and star 6 and then speak before the board. So Eric, if you could maybe communicate to him that he has to do that so he can speak before the board, that will be excellent. It looks like he's actually exited the meeting. Could you please have him call back into the meeting?
Yep, that's what I'm doing on the side as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, do you know what the holdup is?
I got a text. He said that he pressed star 9 and then star 6, but was not recognized. So I asked him to please call back in.
I did recognize him. I feel like this happens frequently. So just have him be patient, please. Eric, have you heard any updates?
Yeah, he's calling back in now. I'm not sure. There are two numbers that are listed, and I'm not sure if one has more difficulties than the other at times, but I believe he dialed in on the 888 number, so I'm not sure.
Jim Lampier, Town Planner. Mr. Chairman, can I interject here in this interludes and just say a couple of words?
Diorio here, yes, go right ahead.
In the interest of saving some time. I was wondering if Mr. Preve.
Mr. Landry just joined the meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Landry, please press *6, and then please state your name for the record.
Hello.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I did the same thing before and could not be heard for some reason. *9 and *6.
Yeah, you have to
Not
press
sure why.
*9 and then *6. So the *9 indicates that you are in the audience. That raises your hand. Then I can unmute you or request that you unmute yourself, and then you press *6. So it's two
Yeah.
separate functions. So do one and then the other, just for future reference.
I did both of those, but I'm not complaining. I'm just happy to be connected at this point.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm not sure if all of the board members were participating the last time we had an update meeting on this. I'm just going to provide a very, very brief context of where we've been and why we're here, mostly for those who may not know those things. The project was approved 10 years ago. In December of 2010, a master plan approval on a project that sought 300 units, but was approved for less than that based on a formula that was in the decision. It was left up to the applicant to design the project to meet the lower density, which is 140 units. We followed the same design parameters, but turned a 300 unit project on 358 acres into a 140 unit project. And this is the second of two calls that we've had with the board in recent months as we prepare our preliminary plan submission to get some feedback from the board with respect to their preferences on this design. It's not every day that a preliminary, it's almost never that a preliminary plan comes in that the board hasn't really seen before in the context of the master plan submission. But it was a feature of that master plan approval that this would happen, and it had happened. And we appreciate this second opportunity for some advanced input. The last time we did this with respect to community septic issues, it was the input that we received was very helpful. So this one here relates to the distribution of the affordable units within the development and how that will occur. We're required to have 25% of our 140 affordable units, that's 35 units, be deed restricted to households of low or moderate income. And we have several different ways to do that. Now, I want to tell you that we have been preparing our preliminary plan submission over the past several months, and we have prepared it in a way that it's almost imminent for submission, and we've done it in a way in which the key design elements would accommodate any one of the alternatives for distributing the affordable units. So we're not here to advocate or stress a preference for any one of these features, for any one of these alternatives, but are really looking for the board's input. And I know this is a little bit difficult because we don't have the ability to share in real time the 4 drawings that we submitted to the board with the alternatives. They are in the meeting packets and are available online, but I'll have to do my best to very succinctly describe the 4 different alternatives that we have presented. The first one, our option number A, is very simple. We would have 140 single-family lots that meet the design requirements, and 105 of those single-family lots are single-family dwellings, are market rate single-family dwellings, and the other 35 are deed-restricted low or moderate income housing single-family dwellings. One lot, one single-family dwelling on the lot. The second alternative would have some of the affordable units consist of accessory apartments to a principal single-family residential use. This would permit fewer lots. There would actually be 2 dwellings on each of the lots. One of them a single-family dwelling, the other an attached or detached accessory rental apartment with 1 bedroom. That feature would provide for more open space in the development, less infrastructure, and perhaps add to the housing options available to Hopkinton residents and a more diverse housing stock. So that one, you'd have 105 lots. Each one would have a single family dwelling on it. And then 35 of the lots would have attached 1-bedroom apartments that would be deed restricted. The whole lot would be deed restricted so that the use of those accessory apartments could only be by qualified lower moderate income households enforced by a monitoring agent. The third option is kind of a mixture of the first 2. The 35 affordable units would be, some of them would be single family homes on their own lots, and some of them would be accessory apartments that share a lot with a market rate single family home. And that option, that sort of hybrid option, would have 122 lots to the development, plus 17 more single family lots with single family houses on them, and those would be deed restricted for households of lower moderate income housing. And then another 18 of the affordable units would be associated with houses, single family houses that would also have the accessory apartment feature in the way I described earlier. Again, saves on open space, not as much as option B, but has more single family homes being used for affordable and fewer of this alternative for apartments. And then finally, the last option would include 105 single family market rate lots, but toward the entrance to the development, there would also be a series of apartment buildings, 9 4-plex units that would be units for low and moderate income deed restricted housing. That would again, permit a more compact development. It would actually push the development back a little bit. The entrance, from the entrance, it would require more infrastructure than the other options, but that was one that was suggested by someone within the town administration as something else to possibly consider. So those are the four alternatives we have. Again, we're not laying on the railroad tracks here as to any one of them. Some are obviously more expensive than others, but that's not a consideration for purposes of this process. So unless you have any further questions, we're interested in having your comment. We have Eric Prevey of the Preet Engineering is available to provide any additional technical questions that you might have. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have as well.
Here. Very good. Bill, thank you very much. So again, why don't we start with planning board members? Thoughts or comments? Okay, I don't mind leading off. So for me, it would be option A. Option D fails immediately on its inability to distribute the affordable housing discreetly throughout the project, which was an important consideration for the planning board upon the approval. Options B and C, I got to be candid. I have asked for information as to how this mechanism would actually work since it was first proposed. To the best of my knowledge, I have never received anything. So I can only therefore go with my gut instinct, which tells me that this approach is nothing but a nightmare waiting to happen. So I can't in good conscience endorse B or C. So very simply, that's my rationale. I would just issue this cautionary language that there were a set of conditions attached to this approval. They have withstood SHAB, they've withstood the courts. These are the conditions that I believe should apply to the project without deviation. My 2 cents. Other planning board members.
Ron here. I have to agree with our chairman. Option A, in my opinion, is the only one that's looks like it could be workable. Again, my thoughts on B are the same as Al. It doesn't seem like it's gonna actually come to fruition in any way. And if you combine A and B to get C, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So I would have to agree with our chairman that I go along with option A, but not the other 3. That's all.
This is Emily. I concur. I see that option A is really the only option that's consistent with the master plan that was approved in 2010. Option B and C, because they each include 1-bedroom apartments, are not consistent with that master plan, which dictates single family houses. And option D, as Al mentioned, because the affordable units, the apartments, are clustered in the entrance or anywhere really in the development, it actually makes that option completely inconsistent with the Hopkinton inclusionary zoning ordinance. So it's more than just the planning board's preference, it's the ordinance that states they have to be integrated throughout a development. So that one is a complete non-starter, I think, as Al mentioned. And I rely on the master plan that was approved in its entirety for my basis of rejecting options B and C.
This is Carolyn. I'd like to point out to our applicants that we do have an ordinance that specifically speaks to accessory dwelling units, Chapter 151. The units that are being proposed as apartments have a lot of requirements tied to them. But as far as our ordinance is concerned, those units cannot be made available to anybody but a blood relative. So any accessory unit proposed in any of these plans they don't meet that requirement. I have in front of me a small plan dated 9/30/2019. Oh, excuse me, 9/30/2009. And if it weren't a micro version, it would be a lot easier to understand the mapping that the approved master plan requires. So I can't, while I agree option A mirrors very much closely what the master plan is asking for, I can't agree that it is completely representative of the plans that were approved back in 2010. So I take issue with that. I think that we deserve a lot more detail than what's been provided to us. But if I had to agree with the direction this would be going in, I would say option A would be my preference as well. I do have a concern with the amount of time that has passed since master plan approval to where we are today. And it has to do with the actual potable water. We experienced a drought condition in our community over the last year. Since master plan approval, there has been development around this particular area that would be infringing on the aquifer and the water flow. I would like to have that element of this project revisited by a professional, because I'm not confident that in today's conditions that the approvals that were granted back then would be applicable today. Our community has issues with water, and over the last 10 years, that has changed. So I would like to know that the developed community will be protected, and I would like to know that the abutters in the community, their water flow, I would like just verification that all of this is still intact and that this large development will be able to support itself and the abutters. At this point, I don't have any additional comments.
You're here. Thank you.
Keith here. I haven't chimed in yet, but I'm going to follow your lead, Al, and agree with option A as the best. And Carolyn, you hit the nail on the head there about pre-existing conditions and can they still be met. So thank you for voicing that.
Go ahead, John.
Hi, John Pennypacker. I have, I guess, two observations. First is, without knowing where and how large the wellheads and the leach field infrastructure needs to be, I'm having a hard time really getting a sense of where things go. And I'm also cognizant of the second the second restriction on the 2010 decision that was specific to minimize how many lots abut Arcadia. So I agree with what the other members are saying, that A through C don't meet the plans, but I'm concerned that D is also stacking up a lot of lots as close to Arcadia as possible. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Any board members? Very good. So let's move around the room. Margaret, anything from your end?
This time, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. Jim?
Jim Lampier, Town Planner, nothing to add.
Very good. Deb, are you still out there?
Yes, she is, Mr. Chairman. I can see her.
Yeah. Very good. Deb, anything that you'd like to contribute?
She needs to unmute.
Yeah, I've given her the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. John brought up an interesting point about the distance from the border of Arcadia. That is an area that's hunted. And I believe the amount of distance you need from a residential home is 500 feet. I only see 400 here, but I think that might be a length and not a width of that right of way. Is that only 50 feet? And I'll just quickly go, the well issue is an important one. There are houses in my neighborhood in Pleasant View who have had to redrill a well. So having an expert look at that would be extremely reassuring, and I'd hate to see any families move into that large neighborhood and not have water.
You're here. Deb, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, I just looked at those plans, and Eric, perhaps you can square me away here. I'm kind of thinking that 400 is an errant contour ID.
Correct. For the record, Eric Prevey with Deprete Engineering. Yes, that 400 is the label of the contour in that area. That is not a dimension between the lots and the property line.
Diorio here. Thank you very much, Eric.
You're welcome.
Good. So unless there's anything else, let's go to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on this application this evening?
If you'd like to comment, please press *9. Carol, please press *6 and then state your name for the record.
Hi, Carol DeRogers. I just wanted to thank Carolyn Light for bringing up the concern about the wells. This summer with the dry conditions, our well has had issues. We were running low several times and had to curtail our water usage. So I'm hopeful that there could be some sort of protection put in place for the existing homeowners if these community wells should have an impact on us. It's been one of my worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to read off the last 4 digits and then please state your name for the record. And then, well, before that, press *6, please. 1701.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Sherry Aronian, Dye Hill Road. I want to also thank Carolyn Light for bringing up the concerns about the water usage and the effect on the potential effect on abutters. And I'm really, I really want to thank the board as well for, you know, that they're going to have an expert validate that no abutters water will be affected by this project. The other thing I wanted to ask the board, and I don't know if this is the proper time or not, so please, you know, correct me if it's not, but in the master plan, you know, there's many conditions. The map I have, the most recent map I have to the project, I think is dated 9/30/2019. And according to the scale, there is a 350-foot buffer from the project to my property line, which was agreed upon by Chris Duhamel, who was the engineer at the time 10 years ago for this particular project. And I want to ensure that that 350 no-cut buffer remains. And although it's on the map, I would like it built into the verbiage of any decisions, if that's possible by the board, just so that it's in two places. You know, the no-cut buffer, that 350 that, you know, had been worked out back in 2010. So that's one thing. And the only other question, actually, nope, that will do. That's all. That's the only question I had, if that can be done.
Very good, thank you.
We have another member of the public. Please state your name for the record and press *6.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Go
Hi.
ahead.
Yeah, Eric Bibler, you know, I'm not thoroughly familiar with all the details of this project because obviously because it, you know, was approved 10 years ago. I just want to say, I guess I'm at a loss to understand how an applicant with a prior master plan approval can come back 10 years later and ignore several important aspects of the master plan that was approved, except for the number of units, and propose 4 new plans. I mean, it seems to me that if the planning board approved a master plan and then there were a series of legal challenges that played out and now is back in front of the planning board as if time has stood still and they want to pursue their master plan, they should be obligated to meet all of the provisions that were agreed to in the prior master plan approval. That, you know, we've heard off and on about various things like road and bridge improvements, you know, road needing to be widened and a bridge rebuilt. I think the original plan called for a community septic, and this plan may show individual septics. There are a number of issues like that. It seems as if this project now is kind of proceeding as if it has a blank check. I mean, I have never understood how it could go forward and present to the planning board 4 completely new plans and offer them up as a choice. And I don't think any one of the 4 actually conforms to the master plan that was originally approved. So look, I don't fully understand the process, but I find it extremely concerning that these concerns that were raised by the planning board 10 years ago, there's only one person on the planning board, I believe, who was here 10 years ago, and these concerns were raised and addressed, and now they're just sort of being shunted to the side. And I think they ought to be, the applicant ought to be obligated to meet those requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Diorio here. Eric, I think I just made it pretty clear that, at least in my opinion, every condition that was initially set forth in the master plan approval is going to be honored. I don't know how you could have been left with the impression that conditions are being tossed off to the side. Now, admittedly, there are some quirks about this application. I think Mr. Landry actually answered your question with regards to the configuration early on. But I just want to focus on the conditions of the master plan. They're in writing. They've stood the test of time. As far as I'm concerned, that's what's going to get done if this project wants to be approved. So, for whatever that's worth. Anyone else in the audience?
He wants to respond.
If there's nobody else.
There's no one else.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Al. I didn't fully understand that. I appreciate your clarifying. You know, I was just going by some of the plans that were in front of us. So I do appreciate that. Thanks.
Good, thank you. Diorio here. Anyone else in the audience wishing to be heard on this?
Nope.
No hands. Okay, so if there's no one else to be heard, we've already agreed it's not quite a pre-application. It was a pre-preliminary. And as a result, I don't think that there is action to be taken, but Margaret, perhaps you can correct me if I'm mistaken.
I'm muted.
No, you aren't, Maggie.
Oh, there we go.
I
It
hear-
keeps saying you can't unmute because the host has muted you. I don't know.
Yes, that's a function of Zoom so that people in the public can't just unmute themselves. This has been a running problem with Zoom meetings on the municipal level where people will just enter and then start saying random things or playing videos. So that's why we mute all participants and then I unmute them. If you mute yourself, then you can't unmute yourself after unless I've given you the ability to do so. So that's just a little bit of background.
Okay, that explains it. Now I lost track. Al, what was the question?
Sorry, Maggie.
So anyway, that's pretty interesting. Okay, so given the format of this application, not quite a pre-application, we defined it as a pre-preliminary. My question is, does there have to be formal action by the board to send the
No.
applicant on their way?
No. In fact, you have no authority to take any formal action because it is not in an application status. And they haven't asked for anything yet. This is just a discussion.
Outstanding, very good. So I'll pose it to the applicant. Do you have what you need?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. DiOrio, we do.
Okay, that's it. Then I believe that this concludes business on this particular application. Thank you. Okay, DiOrio here. We move to new business. First item on the agenda is election of officers. I'm prepared to accept a slate of candidates.
Ron Prowitz here. I'd like to nominate Al DiOrio for the chairman.
Keith, I'll second that.
Who was that?
That was Keith Lindelof.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
So DiOrio here, I certainly appreciate that. Does someone want to put forth an entire slate? We're going to do this one by one. What's your pleasure?
Let's go with the slate.
Let
This
me
is
hear it.
Carolyn, I'll give you a nomination for Ron for vice chair.
Keith here. I'll nominate Emily for vice chair.
Okay, outstanding. There's nothing wrong with two vice chairs. We don't really have a secretary. I saw this on the agenda, and really that's not a position that has value here.
In the past, we voted on, this is Talia, in the past, we voted on who would be secretary. It was most recently Carolyn. My understanding is that the secretary does a lot of the same functions that I would be doing, so it doesn't seem necessary to duplicate that. But I included it because it had been done in the past. And I'm to be honest, I'm not sure if we need to have a secretary, like if it's a requirement to have someone fulfill that title. But
That could be a great legal question. It's not a corporation. Margaret, what do you think?
There is no legal requirement for that. You do not have rules of procedure to the best of my knowledge. And so however the board wants to organize itself in the absence of those rules of procedure, you may proceed.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
great, thank you, Maggie.
So listen, what I hear is a nomination for two vice chairs. I don't have a problem with that, actually. I think it's a good idea.
This is Talia. Al, one question with that would be, who would preside in the event that you recuse?
I'm pretty sure we're all grown up. I think we could probably work that out.
Okay, I'm just wondering if,
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So we have a slate. I don't know if we need a second for the nomination. I'm not quite sure how that works, but.
Yes, you would need a second on a nomination.
Very good. So I have nominations. I'll be looking for a second.
This is Carolyn. I'll give you the second.
There we go. I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Diorio, yes.
Perlowitz, yes.
Light, yeah. Light, yes.
Lindelof, yes.
Shamshina, yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate your confidence. I will continue to do my best. Next item on the agenda, planning board, set time, date, and location of board meetings. I don't think I've seen this one before.
No, but this
Must
is
be a
something-
formality.
So this is something that I found in our files about, this is Talia, excuse me. This is something that I found in our files that the board is empowered to change the day and the time and the location. I don't think that we would change the location, but we could change the day and the time. It really is up to the board. I know that this has been the long-standing date and, well, day of the week and time, but I think it's been different in the past. I'm not quite sure which days it was on previously, but I've read past minutes from many years ago where it's been on a different day of the week.
Okay, interesting. Diorio here. I think this probably has more to do with availability of the facility than anything else. So if there's been a conflict over time with folks and with the date and the time, I'm sorry, the day and the time, please let me know. And we can entertain a change. Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion to keep it on the first Wednesday of the month, 7 o'clock.
This is
Ron here.
Carolyn.
I'll
I'll
make
make a motion. Go ahead, Ron.
Ladies first, go ahead.
Oh, you're calling me a lady. I like that. I'll make a motion that we retain the meeting date and time, first Wednesday of every month at 7 o'clock p.m.
Keith there, I'll second it.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Diorio, yes.
Perlowitz, yes.
Lindelof, yes.
Light, yes.
Shamshina, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Maggie Hogan. If I could jump in for one quick second.
Go right
One
ahead.
of the reasons that is on your January agenda is because the open meetings law requires all public entities to post their meetings for the year in this month. And so I'm virtually positive that's the reason it's on in January.
Outstanding. And I thank you for covering that for us.
Oh, John Pennypacker would like to weigh in.
John, I'm sorry. Did we overlook you?
Go ahead, John.
No, I just chimed in. I wanted to, given that it's a requirement by open meetings, normally like the Google invite, for example, would include the location. But since our meetings are virtual and using this format, I'm wondering if it's a good idea to include the technical connection information in the actual invite that appears online that I think many others subscribe to.
It's certainly on the agenda that's posted because that's how I got in tonight. Just clicked on the link.
It is in the, yes, it is in the agenda, but there's a Google Calendar that the town maintains. I
Oh, I see.
subscribe to it so that it shows up on my phone, but in order to then connect, I have to go and find the agenda.
Oh, okay, I see.
I don't know if, I mean, it's a minor inconvenience. I don't know if we need to be more accessible in order to satisfy the requirements of Open Meetings Act.
John, this is Talia. I don't know if I have the ability to do that. That might be something that our IT personnel, Chris Scheid, would do. So I can ask him tomorrow if that's something that we can change or and if so, that we do so. I mean, Maggie did say that it is on our agenda, and usually people will look at our agenda before they decide to come to a meeting, but that's not always the case. And so I understand where your concern lies. So I'll see if there's something that maybe we can do about that so that it shows in that alert that it's a virtual meeting. I'm not sure if that's actually something that we can accomplish, but I'll give it a shot.
In the absence of it, again, Maggie here, in the absence of that, a Google Calendar thing. Just be assured that your agendas are compliant with open meetings.
Yep, I post them every
You're good there.
week before.
Very good. John, thank you for that comment. All right, listen, next item on the agenda, I'm going to be recusing on this particular application. I have a notice of recusal. It's dated today. I'll be handing this to Talia in just a minute. For my recusal is my firm has performed surveying services for this applicant in the past, although I am not involved in any aspect of this project and/or application. So at this juncture, I would respectfully request Ron to take control and leave it in his capable hands.
And this is Talia, and I am accepting Al's notice of refusal. We'll put it in the file. And I would like to ask the applicant, please press star 9 so I can recognize them.
Okay, thank you, Al. Moving right along. This is going to be a major land development project pre-application meeting for photovoltaic solar energy system at Plot 2, Lot 73 on 136 Chase Hill Road. Does the applicant have anything that they wish to bring forward at this point?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Good evening. It's Attorney Joelle Rocha for the applicant. We also have, or should have, Jason Gold, who's our project engineer, on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can I, Lampier, Town Planner, can I interject one thing? We have,
Sure,
because we have Mr. Diorio recusing himself, we have Mr. Pennypacker, who's an alternate. Just for the record, can we have him moved up to a sitting member, regular member? Such that he can hear this and potentially vote on this at some point in time.
That's correct. That's what will happen. This is Maggie.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
All right, John, you're on. This is Talia.
No pressure.
You can continue your presentation, Joelle. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you. So this, many of you probably recall this application before the board for a recommendation on the zone change back in September. This property is 39 acres of, the full property is 39 acres of forested land with some cleared areas. It's a former junkyard. Most recent use portion of the site was a quarry. This board, as well as the council and the Wood, Pawcatuck, Wild, and Scenic Rivers Stewardship Council, provided some good comments, concerns, and feedback, and we actually reconfigured part of the proposed array, taking it further away from both the Pawcatuck River and the Polycomb Bridge. The council approved the zone change in November with 17 very detailed conditions. Some of the conditions are with respect to coverage amounts for lot coverage, and some are with respect to the conservation easement, which is to be deeded post decommissioning of this project. We're here tonight simply for pre-application to show you the design, the updated design, get some constructive feedback with respect to the design features so we can prepare for and submit master plan. Two things I just want to say up front, we won't be, unless the board so chooses, getting into the weeds on tonight are the following. Yesterday, I received a copy of the letter from the Land Trust with their input with regard to a few conditions of the zone change. We intend on communicating directly. We're still digesting that, and we're going to communicate directly with the Land Trust in the next couple of weeks and respond to their letter offline and see if we can work towards implementation of the council's conditions. which were with respect to the reforestation plan and the conservation easement itself. I can certainly loop in your new solicitor with the draft of the conservation easement when we get to that point. Second, late this afternoon, I received a copy of Mr. Bibler's letter, which purports to make several legal arguments, most of which were addressed by both myself and the previous solicitor on the record at the council meetings for the zone change. Some of the issues are actually also addressed in the zone change itself. I don't believe there are any pending legal issues to address tonight, but I would be happy to address or discuss any questions this board or your solicitor has. If not, I have our project engineer here to provide an overview of the design and open a conversation with you all with respect to any questions or concerns you have, so we can take a look at them and move further along in this process.
Okay, thank you. Would Mr. Gold like to weigh in at this point, or would you rather have questions first? Questions or comments?
That's directed to you, Joelle. This is Talia.
Oh, sorry. If the board doesn't have any specific questions right now, it's really your preference. We can present the design and then deal with all the questions or comments. It's entirely up. I'll defer to the board on that.
Okay, I'll start off here with one quick question. Do we have any documentation from the DEM about the condition of the property?
Sure. So their DEM is not yet involved. We'll be submitting to them with respect to the wetlands and stormwater. At that time, they'll take a look at the features of the property. The DEM doesn't have an active file at this site. There was years ago, which is in the town records, a notice of violation issued only with respect to the junkyard itself for storage of too many tires and the like. That file does not include any releases of any material that needed to be remediated. It was simply a remove certain things from the property. So there is nothing active and no active DEM remediation file on this site.
No, if I could throw my own 2 cents worth in there, I'm very familiar with this property. I've lived in this town for 69 years. There's stuff on that property or in that ground from the cars and the junk that was done there that the DEM may want to look at. They may have some conditions that need to be met. They may give it a blessing and say, go ahead. But I think they should be at least questioned on this, if they're happy with the way things are or not. Go ahead.
Right. So this came up before, and the condition, there is a condition on the zone change that we do whatever DEM basically requires of us at this site, if anything, for the solar use itself. So they will, I'm confident that as soon as they get the applications at this property, they'll give whoever needs to look at it over at DEM. It's been a long process with these applications lately. They're pretty backed up, so they'll be doing the thorough review in the normal course, I would think.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Carolyn. I need to voice my concern. DEM remediation of that property is the elephant in the room. And I'm disappointed that the developer and the attorney haven't been proactive about talking to our community about the steps that are going to be taken to remediate that property. It's a big problem. I feel like the applicant is dismissive of that concern. And I'm not comfortable moving forward until there is an active file there from DEM. It's not a small issue, it's a major issue. We've got the Pawcatuck River at the other end. We've got over 50 years of junkyard. It's not appropriate to be dismissive of that and assume or present it like it's a small matter. If that matter isn't addressed, it's going to impact your ability financially to move forward with this project. There are remediation grants out there, all kinds of support for it. So from a developer's perspective, I don't understand why you wouldn't proactively address that issue. And I'm opposed to moving forward until that major elephant, that big question, is acknowledged and answered.
I
And I'm sure
appreciate your
DEM
comment.
would feel the same way.
Okay, I appreciate your comments. We're at pre-application on this project. I'm not dismissive of these hypothetical issues that may or may not be on the site. We're aware of the history of the project. There's been due diligence materials done. There will continue to be. This isn't our first rodeo with projects. We know about financing contingencies. We know about all of that. We will deal with DEM and the requirements they have for the use at the site when we go through that process. This is a pre-application for the project. We're looking for comments with respect to design. If you're opposed to the project from the outset, we haven't even presented it to you, that's fine. I understand your position, but we're going to move forward with comments on the design and we'll deal with DEM to the extent we need to. This is a solar project. This is not a residential proposal in front of you. It is a very different analysis with respect to the DEM process. We will do what we need to do as is required for our zone change. Thank you.
Thank you, Joelle. I'm confident that you will move forward in the right direction with DEM. Here's another question. One of the conditions that the town council placed on this property was that the quarry cease operation immediately. And in the letter we received from ESS, it states that this is an active quarry. So,
right.
You know,
So
I'm
I
looking
think
for some confidence in the things that you're telling us. I'm asking you to validate these things. So,
understood.
where are we with
That is a very fair comment. I didn't pick that up. I didn't pick that up on the narrative material, so I apologize for that. You're correct. As part of the condition for the zone change was to abandon the quarry use, and that is what we stand by.
Has it been abandoned because it was effective immediately?
It hadn't been used in some time, in a couple months. I think George Camoli may be on the line and he could probably answer that. It is my understanding that that's a yes, but I cannot, I'm the attorney. I think he can appropriately give you the response on that.
I'm not a legal expert, but it would be my understanding that the zone change can't move forward until we receive confirmation that the quarry activity has ceased. But that's not for, I don't know what direction that would go in, but if George wants to respond to that concern, please do.
Yep, understood.
Please press *6. This is Talia.
Hello,
And then please state your name for the record. Thank you.
George Camoli on the line.
All right, go ahead.
As far as abandoning the quarry, we will not abandon the quarry till we get approval for the solar project, but we have not removed any stone, put any machinery down there since, I don't want to mislead anyone, I believe it was May of 2020.
That sounds inconsistent with, No, well, that sounds inconsistent with what we've heard at previous meetings. But the quarry operations are supposed to be abandoned according to the conditions that were laid out by the town council. So I would suggest that you guys revisit that and, you know, support the rest of this application by following through on that recommendation by the town. Thank you.
We most assuredly will follow through with the abandonment of the quarry. We're not utilizing it, nor have we since we've presented this petition.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Anything else from the board members?
I have a question. This is Emily. I have a question for, and this is probably directed at our solicitor. So the zone change applies to Unit 2 of this development, which is a condominium development with 3 units. This is a scheme unfamiliar to me, and it's very uncommon in town, so excuse my lack of knowledge on this. The Unit 1, which provides the access to the now commercial Unit 2, is still a residential, zoned residential. How does this function where the road by which you would access this commercial property and the road, it's included in this limit of disturbance. So I assume this road is taking on a commercial designation as well. It's difficult for me to tell from the plans how this functions. Can we talk about that a little bit, and can you provide your opinion on how this might function from a zoning and land use perspective?
I can, but I'm not prepared to address that this evening. I do not have a copy of the zone change. And so I understand based on the map that I'm looking at this evening, that what you're saying is that the lot to the front was not included in the zone change. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's correct.
That's my understanding. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Joelle.
Yeah. So I can add a little bit of clarity, and I can certainly provide your solicitor with what was submitted with respect to this issue previously. And the previous solicitor did weigh in on this issue because it did come up at the zone change before the council. So yes, the lot pursuant to the Zoning Enabling Act is condominium unit 2 only. So that's the only applicable zone change was with respect to condominium unit 2. The roadway in and of itself, and we went through this, so I'll do this. I'm going to tell you the same thing we said there, is that roadway. So these units are already commercial, including the front one. So the roadway services trucks and so on and so forth for the front unit as well. This is a unique, set of property that will probably, despite their zoning, always remain commercial. But there's commercial traffic now coming through there, and there'll be the construction vehicles, and then the very rare maintenance vehicles. Fingers crossed.
Attorney Rocha, did I understand you to say that this front lot is commercial?
It's commercial in use, not by use.
It's a residential.
So it's a pre-existing. Yeah.
It's zoned residential. Is what you're telling me?
Correct.
With a pre-existing commercial roadway to service the quarry.
No, and the front lot. There's actually commercial use. It's a mixed use on the front lot as well. But it does, yeah, to service the junkyard previously and the quarry and the front lot.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would like a little bit of time just to be able to review the zone change. As I've said, this is not a question that I think I'm prepared to answer right at this very moment.
By a little bit of time, I'm assuming that you want to come back with that? Or do you just need
Yeah,
a few
please,
minutes now
yes.
to do it? Okay.
No, not a few minutes now, no.
Yes, that's acceptable. It's always best if everybody's got all the information they need to have to deal with these things. Okay, board
Maggie.
members, do we have anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is Carolyn. Maggie, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it would have to be in the form of some kind of a easement. But you let us know what we need to do.
Okay.
What?
All right, this is John Pennypacker. I have a similar question. Again, you know, my first day was yesterday, so I'm just catching up to this. I just kind of skimmed through the zone change. What about unit 3? I don't know how the condo thing works either, but I know that we're not permitted to create non-buildable lots. So it's not a separate lot, but it looks like the road is going under the solar panel. So will that road reach unit 3?
I can answer that question. Yeah, there's it's kind of hard to
Please
see on these
identify yourself
concept
when you
plans.
speak.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, this is Jason Gold, civil engineer with ESS Group. It's a little hard to see on these concept plans, but there is access maintained around the outside edge of the array that will lead to unit 3. So it goes to the east side.
Okay.
Yeah, between the fence and the side yard.
So looking at this map, that would be on the east side? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you, Jason. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't identify myself. It's Ron Prowitz here. Okay, anything else from the board members?
I just have one last thing, Ron. This is Emily.
Sure.
Not sure if it's been alluded to or directly stated, but the planning board in its September meeting unanimously provided a recommendation or an advisory opinion to the town council that this rezone would be inconsistent with the Hopkinton comprehensive plan. So I just wanted to be forthcoming about that. I still believe that this is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. And the reasons we gave related to the land use goals and conservation goals stated in the plan. I could enumerate them, but you know, they're in the meeting minutes for that September 2nd meeting. The very minimal difference in the structure of this plan since we saw it last time in September, I don't believe makes it all of a sudden consistent with the comprehensive plan. And I've stated that about other projects that have received zone changes from the previous town council as well. I think a lot more is needed to be done to make it consistent with the comprehensive plan, land use, natural resources, and conservation goals that we outlined in our advisory opinion in September. So I just wanted to be very clear about that up front. Thanks.
And we're very cognizant of the determination in September. I just want to be cautious of where we go with that, because the use itself is allowed because of the zone change. So while I understand the planning board very thoroughly listed all of the reasons why it thought it wasn't consistent with the comprehensive plan, the very passage of the zone change means that the use itself is consistent. So we'll be looking to address the other aspects of design, but we're not going to move forward to address the consistency of the use at that point. And I would defer to your solicitor on that. I'm not here to give you legal advice, but I will be, our presentations going forward will focus on the design portion of it.
This is Carolyn.
Okay, thank you.
How are you guys? Can Carolyn speak, or do you want me not to talk anymore?
No, go ahead, Carolyn.
Okay, I want to address the setback. And consistently in our community, this planning board has insisted that the setbacks support the properties they are abutting. So 25 feet doesn't work for us. It might work in the pretty pictures because there is a lot of forest and trees around everything, but it doesn't support the eventuality that those trees, those owners have rights to take down some of those trees. So at the end of the day, I think the buffer zone around the entire project needs to be widened. Could you speak to that, please?
I'd like to actually present the design, and then we can.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I'd like to get your feedback on that type of stuff, but I don't want to spend the evening going back and forth on stuff. I think we've got to apply for master plan and think about and digest your comments, and then kind of move forward. We'll certainly be back in front of you again on this. So.
Okay. So let's talk about design then. Why don't you present so that we can give you our input? Right? Does that work?
Go ahead, Jason.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Again, my name is Jason Gold. I'm a professional engineer with ESS Group. You should have the plans in front of you. If you're online, the presentation documents are access to those instructions are on the agenda. The plans that I'll be referring to are titled Kamali Solar Pre-App Plans 12/17/20. We already described the existing conditions back in September, so I won't spend any time going through that again unless any questions come up. So the main sheets are drawing C1, which is the first sheet, and P1, which is the fourth sheet. These are the concept plans, which are similar to what you've seen in September, but we did make some changes, which I will review briefly. So in summary, just in case you don't remember from September, it's a 3.4 megawatt DC ground mounted system with access, as we've been talking about, along an existing gravel driveway that'll be improved from Chase Hill Road. So since we presented in September, we've moved the eastern array. We actually eliminated the eastern array and extended the western array south, providing a much larger setback to the Polycoon Bridge. It's now about 900 feet from the river. We also significantly reduced the limits of disturbance in the clearing and reduced the fence size slightly. The limits of disturbance and the total trees being cut have been reduced by almost 3 acres since the previous plan presented in September. As a reminder, the setbacks from the property lines along the sides are, several hundred feet or a couple hundred feet. In most areas, it's about 500 feet from the north, or almost 1,000 feet from Chase Hill Road, about 260 feet from the property to the west. And as I said, it's several hundred feet from the property line to the east, the far east. The closest spot, there is a 25-foot side yard setback, which is what's required. That is actually where setback is greater than that. We're beyond that 25-foot side yard. The nearest residence is over 600 feet away to the west. Looking at drawing P2, which is the 5th sheet. This is the exact same drawing that I presented back in September. No changes have been made to this. What this does, as a reminder, is it demonstrates that due to the topography, the array is not visible from Chase Hill Road. And what you're seeing in the bottom there is a Google Street View looking down the driveway, which would be the most visible spot as there's no trees along the driveway. And the profile above it shows the topography and the sight line from eye height. And as you can see, that sight line gets blocked by the topography. So the array is not visible from Chase Hill Road. The next sheet is new, drawing P3, which is the last sheet in the set. And this is similar, only it's a view from Polycoon Bridge. So looking from the bridge towards the array, similarly, the topography blocks the view from the bridge. And that's not even counting the several hundred feet of trees to remain. So that is a very brief overview of things that have changed in September. Future work that will be needed as this progresses. As Joelle stated, this is the pre-op stage. So as this progresses, the permit level design will be advanced based on your feedback tonight and at master plan, as well as the noise study, preparation of the decommissioning plan, the stormwater report, the erosion control plan, and of course, RIDEM permitting. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. The only question I have is, it's not a question, but it's like a request. On the 25-foot yard setback on the eastern side, can you describe to us the property that belongs to Leslie and Margaret Wright? I'm thinking it goes uphill from where the array is onto the right property. Am I correct in assuming that?
It goes, I'm sorry, my computer froze on me.
You know, the natural lay of the land from where the array is proposed into the right property. I think the right property is at a higher elevation.
I don't have the topography of that in front of me.
Okay.
But I believe it does. It slopes up that way across the site, so I assume it continues. And that area is, it's wooded, and there are actually wetlands, not delineated, but you can tell from looking at some of the GIS maps between the house and that lot that's up near Chase Hill Road and the array. That's all blocked by what appears to be streams and wetlands. So that area is not likely developable.
Would you like me to answer that question? George Camoli.
Yes, George, go ahead.
I walked that site numerous times with several of the councilors. As you go in an easterly direction, you go towards the river, towards Polycoop Bridge. It slopes downwards into a wetlands. As you go towards Chase Hill Road and Michael Grill's property and the right property, it starts going uphill. It's all vegetated and wet as you go in an easterly direction.
Okay, thank you, George.
You're welcome.
That was the way I was remembering it, but it's been a while since I've been on that part of the property. Okay, I would like a little direction from our town planner. Where do we go from here? I'm thinking comments from the general public.
Jim Lampier, Town Planner. Mr. Chairman, you can go in any direction you feel comfortable going in at this point. We're at the pre-application. It's basically this meeting here tonight is just for an exchange of information between the planning board and the developer. If you choose to open it up for public comment, that's your choice to make. That's it.
Ron Prelwitz again. Thank you, Jim. Talia, do we have anybody in the audience that has a raised hand?
We do.
Mr. Biebler.
Okay, if we could hear what they would like to say, and then we'll move on from there.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, it's Eric Bibler here. I sent a letter to the planning board late this afternoon. I imagine several of you may not have even had a chance to read it. So I'm not looking for any answers or comments this evening. It was a pretty simple request. I raised a number of legal issues that are of great concern. They've actually been issues of ongoing concern with other projects, but especially this one most recently. I made a simple request that the town planner not certify that the master plan application is complete and that the planning board not grant any approval to the project until your solicitor is able to review these questions and advise you on them. I'm aware that the counsel for the applicant has been dismissive of these concerns in the past, but I think the planning board really needs to obtain the opinion of the planning board solicitor to advise them on these questions. I think they're pretty important. One question I will highlight is that I think, as Emily said, this is an unusual property. There's one large property that's divided into 3 land condominiums. The property itself, the larger property, is zoned residential. And this project had proposed to split zone the larger property into a split zone unit 2 as commercial property and have the remaining 2 units, land condominium units, remain residential. I don't believe, based on advice that's been provided to me, or at least I'm not confident, that that a land condominium the establishment of land condominiums constitutes a subdivision of the property, and I do not believe that you can have a rezoning of a unit without subdividing the property. You can't subdivide the property without approval of the planning board. So I would just like the planning board to, I don't think any of us are experts in this, but I would like the planning board to ask their solicitor to give them a determination on that point and the other points that I raised. And I would also beg you to ask your solicitor to share her determinations on these points with the public. Sometimes we ask these questions in hearings. We'd like to have answers. In the past, there have been instances where the town solicitor refused to address the question in public and then wrote a memo to the town council or some other board and then didn't share it with the public. So none of us was, was educated on the point. So I think if a memo is going to be written and the point's going to be addressed and defended, then I think that it should be shared with the public so that we all understand what the rules of the game are. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. This is Ron again. Do we have anybody else with a raised hand, Talia?
We do not at this time, but I'll ask again if there are any members of the public who would like to comment on the project. Please press *9. We don't have any hands, Ron.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now my question goes to our town planner. Do we need a motion on this, or do we just send this off to the next step?
Jim Lampier, Town Planner. Mr. Chairman, no votes are taken in a pre-application meeting. You can, if you're done with this, you can send it on to the next step, which is the master plan submission.
This is Ron. Thank you, Jim. Okay.
This is Carolyn. This is Carolyn. Can I chime in, please?
Certainly.
Okay. Regarding the setbacks, I'd like to bring that back, and I'd like to ask our developer, our engineers, to support the planning board's desire to have a lot more buffer between property lines. Those owners can't speak for themselves, but we're thinking about long-term goals and keep everybody that's paying taxes happy. So 25 feet wouldn't necessarily satisfy what we'd like to see there. And I encourage you guys to get closer to 100 feet and step over the 25 feet. It's just not going to work for us. And if that means that the project needs to be moved a little over to the north or west, please do. I don't have any other comments at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, I have a question for Mr. Gold. This is Ron again, Ron Prowitz. What are your thoughts on moving the buffer on the eastern side? Maybe reconfiguring something, go longer with it, whatever it takes.
Yeah, this is Jason Gold with ESS. We can, that's why we're here, is to get these recommendations so we can take a look at it and at least address that concern at master plan.
Okay, thank you. That being said, it looks to be, in my opinion, that we're at the end of this, and we can move on to the master plan and get this on the agenda for another time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
At this point, I would like to have Al come back and finish up the meeting. Unless he's gone home.
No, he's still here.
Okay.
There, Ron. Thank you very much for handling that.
Welcome.
Okay, few final items on our agenda this evening. Planners report. I see none.
Jim Lampier, Town Planner, that is correct.
Very good. Correspondence and updates. I have one letter from State Senator Elaine Morgan concerning runoff on Maxon Hill Road. I have it. I see that she's submitted some photos. Jim, thoughts?
Yes, Jim Lampier, Town Planner. That letter was submitted to my office, and at her request, I give it to the planning board for your information. I can tell you that the planning department is on top of 310 Main Street Solar Project, as well as Doug Allen and Crossman Engineering. We are aware of those problems, and we will ensure that they are corrected probably in the spring, probably the spring here. We're going to make some observations over the winter, and we're going to work with the developer to come up with some solutions that take care of the stormwater runoff onto Maxon Hill Road, as well as Route 3 Main Street. So we're on top of that. Crossman is all over that thing, and we've had a number of reports from them, and conversations with the developer are ongoing on this. So I only forward that to you for your information. We are on top of it, and we will take corrective action as may be necessary.
This is Talia. Doug is in the audience. If you'd like to have him make a few comments about this, if you'd like, Jim.
I'm free to have Doug comment on it. We're not. I would say, this item is really not on the agenda for discussion. So I would, because the applicant is not here and privy to it, I don't personally believe there's any need for Doug Allen to weigh in on this. I was asked to give the letter to the planning board. I gave the letter to the planning board. It's not on the agenda really for discussion, the crux of that matter.
Okay, this is Talia. I just wanted to offer that up. No worries.
Yep, Diorio here. Jim, thank you very much. Hey, so listen, the only thing that I would add here is perhaps a response to Elaine indicating, yep, we received the memo just the way you said it, we're on top of it, just so that we close the loop, huh?
Absolutely.
Outstanding, great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is public forum. Any hands?
No,
No hands.
no hands.
Okay. That brings us to the date of the next meeting, which is February 3rd. And if there is nothing that can legitimately come before us this evening, I'm prepared to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a wow. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Keith here, I'll second that.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Yes.
This is Carolyn. I'll third it.
Angelo, yeah.
Shamshini, yes.
Prowitz, yes.
Light, yes.
Is that everybody?
Can John vote to adjourn?
Alternate members can vote, but their votes don't count if full members are sitting. So, suit yourself. Very good. Listen, thank you all very much for your time, and we appreciate your efforts. Next time.